Once again, welcome to our session this morning, which is how to work with and motivate different personality types. My name is John Fiegel. I work in Human Resource Services. My co-facilitator today is Sue Marines. She also works in Human Resource Services. One of our assistants today is Joe. Raise your hand, Joe. Joe's here to help us out as well. Let me tell you, just give you a little bit of background about where Sue and I work, how we're related to the university. We work in the Human Resource Services organization, which is part of the Finance and Administration organization here. So we're part of that staff group. And our job is to provide products, solutions, and services for all the different divisions, schools, and functions in the university. So human resources, we provide support for staffing, employee relations, labor relations, compensation benefits, and we also provide support for training and development and team building, strategy work, change management. So that's why we're here, because as part of our role, we support the Alumni Relations and Development Organization. So we're very excited to be here as part of the Volunteer Caucus and really to learn more about this model of go, give, and help and your role in that. It's very, as Sue and I were talking and preparing for this, we're very impressed with this organization that's being pulled together, and also very impressed with the work that you're doing and that you volunteered to do. So before we get started, I think one of the great things about an event like this is the opportunity to meet other folks who are doing similar work. So we're going to do we're going to give you a real quick opportunity just to meet the person next to you if you don't know them already. And I say quick, okay, capital Q, really quick. I'm going to ask you to do three things. Introduce yourself, your name, where you're from, all right? What do you hope to get out of this session? And how does your brain feel this morning? Yeah. All right. You got 1 minute. Go. Thank you. All right. Wow. It was like an explosion of energy there, wasn't there? There were hugs in the back room. Did you see that? People were hugging. And I think they just met each other. This is a really warm group. So what was that experience like? How was that? It was good. Okay. So where are people from? Anybody from out of the state? Okay. North Carolina. Los Angeles. Oh, Los Angeles. Pittsburgh. New York City. Orange County. Phoenix. Great. Anybody out of the country? Okay. Well, those of you from out of state, welcome to Chicago. We're very happy to have you here. What are some of those expectations that you have of today, for this session?
We were both excited that we thought we would learn some things that we could use both in the volunteer world and in our professional work world.
Excellent. Absolutely, because what we're going to talk about today does transcend just your volunteer work. It really goes to any kind of relationship that you have with folks. Excellent. What else do you want to learn today?
Sort of how to navigate the myriad of personalities that you encounter in dealing with fellow alumni. Wide range of people.
Wide range of people, and how to navigate that. I like that word you use. It's like a journey, right? Navigating that. Great. There was a hand up back here. What
are personality types other than what we normally think of?
Okay, excellent. What are personalities? And that's what we're going to do first in our session, is really dig into, so what are some of the different ways that personality manifests itself? And actually, I'm going to give you a sneak preview. We're going to uncover that, or kind of unpack that, by looking at how different thinking styles, how different people think. So that's just a little teaser right there. Okay. What else do you want to learn this morning? Others?
You know, when working as a volunteer, it's always good to know, I guess, different personalities and what makes them tick. So if we provide programs and services, you know, along those different personalities and preferences.
Yes, excellent. Good. So once we get a flavor for what are some of those different thinking styles and how those kind of show up in different personality types, if you will, then you as volunteers can use that information to help not only your work, but help to kind of navigate some of those relationships. And as we've said in our in our description here, really how to motivate. So how many folks are new volunteers? Raise your hand. Raise them high. Come on. Go like this. Be proud. All right. So for new volunteers, this is a brave new world, the opportunity to meet new folks and do some new things. How many folks in your role as volunteers have to recruit other volunteers? Raise your hand. Okay. Wow. A lot. Good. So this information will help with that. How many folks in their role need to build teams or groups of volunteers to go do something? All right, this could help with that as well. All right, good. So let's dive into this. As I mentioned just about 10 seconds ago, as we think about personality types, the first question is, so what are they? What are the different personality types? And we're going to explore that by looking at how people think. So this is a brain. All right, not necessarily your brain, but this is a brain this morning. And what we're going to do is engage in what's called the Know Your Brain game. So this is a very interactive session, and our helpers here are going to be distributing these envelopes. And in these envelopes are going to be some cards. And don't wait till I give you the instructions to open the envelopes. And once you've opened the envelopes, there's going to be 5 cards, and they're going to be colored. And I'm going to ask you, and there's going to be some descriptors on those cards. I'm going to ask you to prioritize those cards in order of how you think. So let's see. Let's make sure everybody gets an envelope. Don't open it yet. We've got some extras. Okay. Pass those extras to the end. This is a great group. You follow instructions very well. Raise your hand if you don't have an envelope yet. Okay. So at the signal, open your envelope and review the cards. As I mentioned, prioritize them in order, starting with the one that best describes you, your thinking style, or how your brain works. Identify the cards that are most like you and put those in the top, and then least like you. And focus on how you really are. Not how you want to be, not how your spouse or your significant partner wants you to be, but how you really are. All right, you ready? Go. Now, how many folks have 5 cards that perfectly describe them? Raise your hand. Perfect. How many folks have all 5 cards that perfectly describe them? Okay. Okay. Do you have some cards that you'd like to keep? Some that describe you? Yes, okay. How about cards that maybe you want to get rid of that don't necessarily describe you? Raise your hand. All right, good. What's your name? Remy. Remy asked a question. He said, can we trade? Absolutely, Remy. Remy's 2 slides ahead of me. So we're going to give you the opportunity to get rid of some of those cards that don't necessarily describe you. And this is just good old-fashioned kind of poker trading. So here are the rules. I'm going to lay down some rules here. So once instructed, trade cards with your neighbors. Now, since we've introduced each other, everybody in this room is your neighbor. So don't just limit yourself to the person sitting next to you. It's okay to get up and move around. Talk to as many people as possible.
Based upon what you think you are or what you want?
How you are right now.
All right.
Okay, excellent question. Excellent question. Now, trading must be consensual. All right? There's no stealing. There's none of this, Chicago politics type of stuff. You have to end up with 5 cards. So if you give some up, all right, here's a, wait, no, whoa, hang on. We have a rogue element over here. All right, so, well, hang on for a second. Before you start trading, there was a question over here. Did somebody have a question over here?
Oh, I was hoping it was like Old Maid. Where you could just slip somebody the card you didn't want.
Well, thank you for asking that question. you have to, whatever cards you give up, here's a quiz, if you give up 2 cards, how many do you have to take back? 2, okay. Now, when you're done, if you get up and move around, when you're done, return to your seats, and then I'm going to give you the signal to stop trading. Now, start trading. Wow.
This is great.
Unbelievable.
This is super.
Okay, now, let me ask those same questions. How many people have the 5 perfect cards? Raise your hand. For you.
That's right.
We have a few more. Okay. All right. So let me change my. Okay. So let's do just a real quick kind of debrief of that exercise. There was a lot of energy in the room. That was fantastic. So did anybody have cards that they just couldn't wait to get rid of? Okay. Wow. So most people are. Can anybody want to share what some they want to get rid of? Spontaneous. Punctual. Risk taker. Administrative. Direct. Artistic. Okay. Dominant. Okay. So there were some that just didn't feel right. Today I got to get rid of these. Spiritual. Okay. Did you notice any patterns of the kinds of cards that people wanted to keep? Was there any patterns, any colors that people wanted to keep?
Yeah.
What did you?
Friendly.
Friendly. Okay. They wanted to keep the green ones. Okay.
The red ones.
The green and red. Were there any that people that you couldn't get rid of? Yellow. You couldn't get rid of the yellow? You had too many yellows? You couldn't get rid of the green? No, the control? Okay. Any others that you just couldn't get rid of? Musical. That's very interesting. Now, so we're starting to kind of generate a very loose profile of the brains in this room, aren't we? Interesting. Okay, we'll dig into that a little bit more. Now, were there any strategies or tactics that you used or that were being used on you to get cards? Any particular strategies?
I gave up one that I really wanted, and was able to get it from somebody else.
Oh.
I gave up mathematical to learn it and got it from somebody else.
Okay, see? So the universe made sure that you get your mathematical. Okay, any other tactics or strategies?
I look for people, towards the end when people had traded, I look for people who had opposite colors for what I was looking for. So if they had a lot of green, for example, I was looking for mostly yellows and reds when I found, so they were more likely to trade.
Interesting.
So that was a pattern for me, but I think some other people worked it the other way around.
Now that's interesting. Okay. Interesting. All right.
Well, I found that if you give people some options, rather than saying this is the one that I want to get rid of, and offering them a choice, it made it a little bit easier to get rid of.
Very good. So some real kind of sophisticated negotiation strategies going on here. Okay. Some options laying on the table. All right, good. So now what we want you to do after all that hard work, and you worked hard, we want you to reduce your card count. So you've got 5. Select the 2 cards that are least like you. This is relative. I know you have probably 5 that you want to take home with you and show your family, but you got to get rid of at least 2 of these. When you pick those 2, pass them to the ends of the row. And we're going to come by and collect those. And then keep the 3 cards that are most like you. This is hard. I know it's hard. Well, that's it. You can't take any. Well, you mean more trading, you mean? Sure, go ahead. Pass them down to the ends. Pick either end, doesn't matter. Okay. Has everybody given up 2? All right. So what do you see around you? What are the colors predominantly around you? We hear red, Green. Okay, so we still have a good mix out there. Okay, good. All right, now, in groups of 3 or 4, so you're going to have to form your own little 3 or 4 teams here. You can do that. We want you to answer a few questions. Share this with each other. How did it feel? How did it feel after all that hard work to give up 2 cards and turn them in? I saw some people struggling. It was kind of tough. Did you like giving those cards back? No. So in groups of 3 or 4, you're going to answer these questions. That's okay, Yvette.
I'll be quiet.
And then the last one is, do you have 3 cards that accurately describe you? Now, this is going to be quick. I'm not going to give you any near as much time as you want to have this conversation. I know that. But we're just going to, so just real quick, okay? So get in your groups and quickly have the conversation. Okay. Okay. Let's bring it back. Order in the court. Okay. Thank you. All right. Woo. What was that like? What was that like having that conversation, sharing it with your small team? Fairly easy? Okay. Not hard?
It's rough because you think you're going to make us shake it down to 1.
Oh. Geez. You guys are good. You're like 3 or 4 slides ahead of me. But before we ask you to shave it down, we want to make sure that you have the 5 cards that best describe you. So this is your final chance to get those 5 best cards. And on this row and on the back row are every single possible card that you would ever want. And there's 1 second. What we're going to ask you to do, in safety and concern for your fellow volunteer, is very important here, because these are narrow rows. There's enough room for everybody to go on both sides and bring your cards. And what we want you to do is to find the 5 best cards. So you can get rid of all 3 and get 5 new ones. It doesn't matter, but we want you to find the 5 best cards. So this is just like a fire drill. In an orderly manner, leave your rows, and then go to pick a row, either this row or that row. Let's come back together here.
He wants us to prioritize them or not. But this makes sense.
All right, good. So now, by now, most folks should have, I know there's a few folks who still were looking for that one elusive card and they couldn't find it, but most folks should have those 5 cards. What is being passed around, what's being distributed, is a half sheet of paper. Does everybody have one? If you don't have one, raise your hand. Right here in the back. On the left-hand side, it's got a column that says words. On the right-hand side, it's a column that says color. So we want you to note on the piece of paper the 5 words that you selected, their color, their associated color. Now, I'm sorry, what's your name? Yeah, Carl. As Carl alluded to about 7 minutes ago, I'm going to ask you to identify that 1 card that you think best describes you. Put a check next to it, or circle it, or a smiley face, or however you want to identify it. And then you have to take that card and get rid of it. You have to pass it down to the end of the row. Yes? Got to let it go, man. You'll see. Trust me on this one. You have your list. It's okay. You've got your list. You've got the 5 words and you've got the colors. Put a circle around it, check it, and then take that 1 card and pass it down. We're going to collect those. Got 1 card. Good. Now, we want to get you back in some groups. Could be the same group, could be different, groups of 2 or 3, 3 or 4. And we want you to share with each other how those 5 words that you selected describe how you think. So those 5 words that you selected, how does it represent your thinking style, how you think? How does it affect you when you're working? How does it affect you in your day-to-day life? And what effect does that have on your work as a volunteer? So this is where we want to do a little introspection. Think about how do these 5 words describe how I think and how it kind of affects how I work in the world as a volunteer. Ready? Go. Let's come back together. All right. This, for a large group, we got 42 people. You do really well at going into small groups and coming back into the big group. Very nicely done. So what was that experience like? With any insights, any learning?
All of our small groups had chosen red cards to represent themselves.
Wow, predominantly red right here. Okay. Okay, interesting. Did anybody else have select 5 cards of all the same color? Okay, a couple folks. Okay, okay. What else? Other thoughts about that experience? Just kind of sharing your thinking style or how it impacts how you work or your role as a volunteer.
There is a synergy between the people in the group and the consensus as to what works well for them and each of us in the group. And it was like, whoa, there's something going on right here.
Interesting. Just in this small group right here?
Yeah.
Wow, pretty powerful.
I'm all red, so it's all like helpful, cooperative, friendly. And then I'm on the alumni board of the SSA, University of Chicago School of Social Service Administration, and I'm the president. And I'm big on relationships. That you can't be a volunteer unless you have a relationship with the school, a relationship with each other. I'm not going to come to anything if I don't know anyone. So that's one of the things that I make big is that everybody knows each other so that you can feel community and then be more prone to volunteering, to giving, and things like that.
Wow, well said. Thank you. And that's a great segue into our piece here, but go ahead.
I was going to say that in our group, we talked about that, but we also talked about all of us were very sort of green and blue. And so we talked about how you have to be able to harness that with the planning aspect of it as well.
She's my planner.
You need to have people decide when you talk about it, but you need to have people provide things to say this is what's happening.
Wow. I get chills when I hear this. This is fantastic. So what word, when you talk about having people who represent this skill set or that thinking style, what's one word that can kind of describe that? Team. Making sure you got the right folks on the team or knowing who's on the team and potentially what might be missing. I thought it was great when you said, oh, I have that. She's my planner. That's great. So you know your role.
Yeah, I know her role.
Okay, excellent. Well, let's talk about now. We spent a lot of time here just going through the process of giving you the opportunity to kind of dig in and think about who you are in terms of your thinking style. So we'll take a few moments and talk about the model that's behind this. You're probably wondering, where did this come from? So we're going to talk about that, and then we're going to spend the last section really digging into some specific questions about, now that you know this about yourself and you understand this model around thinking styles, how can we use that in our role as volunteers, particularly in recruiting, motivating, attracting, and building teams. So, and I'm going to go through this real quickly, so if you want some more information on the last slide, I'll have some information that you can refer to, or you can come and talk with me. So biologically, brains are composed of 4 quadrants. We all know about the left hemisphere and the right hemisphere, and most of us have heard about that. Left hemisphere is known for and thought of as that logical, controlled, analytical side of the brain, if you will. On the right hemisphere, holistic, simultaneous, intuitive, that's where that emotional is. Those are 2 sides of the 2 hemispheres, but there's also 2 systems in each hemisphere. That's the cerebral, which is the outer part of the brain, and that's the conceptual, abstract, intellectual thought. And then there's that limbic system that's deep in the brain, and that's the concrete and emotional processing. So if anybody is familiar with emotional intelligence, there's a part of the limbic system called the amygdala, which is Greek for almond, just so that you knew that, that really controls a lot of that emotional processing and how emotions impact our behavior. So these 4 parts of the brain really map onto 4 different thinking styles. And so this model, we're going to go through this model here. And by the way, if you want to get this presentation, I have a sign-up sheet. It's not on your flash drive. Go ahead and put your name on the sign-up sheet, and we'll make sure you get this. You have all this information. This model is really a metaphor for how the brain is structured and then how it relates to the different thinking styles that are part of that. So the blue, if you will, those blue cards and those blue words represent kind of the investigating side of our brain or the thinking style. Yellow is creating. Now some of this you're probably not in your head because the words really fit these, the words that you saw on the cards. That green is the evaluating, that's that planning, evaluating side. And the red is activating. Now this model was, it might be tough to see, was developed by a gentleman named Ned Herman based on research of the brain structure and on psychology. He's put together what's called the brain dominance instrument, which is a paper pencil version of what you just did. So the brain dominance instrument is an assessment that individuals can take to come up with the results that you came up with in the card game. So the card game is just a more interactive way to get to the same results. And then he's also wrote a couple books, one of them being the Whole Brain Business book. Really, he describes how organizations can use this model to build effective teams and to be successful. This has been validated with other instruments. So how many folks are familiar with the Myers-Briggs type indicator? Yeah, most everybody is. So this it maps onto it very nicely. It's not exactly the same, but it's very similar. And it's been field validated by large populations of participants. And it kind of has that face validity. Every time I do this exercise, people look at it and they say, yeah, this is me. So it has that type of validity as well. So let's look at some of the characteristics and traits that are associated with these different thinking styles. Those investigators are some of the traits and characteristics you see are they're focused on gathering information, very mathematical, technical, analytical, that logical type of thinking. Creators, conceptual, they synthesize information, very holistic in their thinking, and can be artistic. So it was very interesting when we couldn't get rid of that musical card earlier. Evaluators, they evaluate, they plan, they organize, they're controlled, very detail-oriented. And this controlled isn't in any kind of pathological way. That's controlled in the sense that they have plans and things are on time and on schedule. So it was great to hear that you've got a planner. You got that quadrant covered back there. You've got two. Because you're strong red. You're all red. Talkative, tactile, emotional, interpersonal, and action-oriented. So I see some heads going up and down, people saying, yeah, okay, this makes sense. So those are some of the traits, characteristics, and behaviors associated with the thinking styles. Now, you put all this together, what Ned Herman described as this was that whole brain. And I'm going to say this now, and I'm going to say it a few more times by the time we're done. Each one of us has all four styles. We have to, or else we couldn't survive. Each one of us also has a preference. So even though you might have all red, or mostly blue, or mostly green, that doesn't mean you don't play or use all four quadrants. You have to. Everybody has to investigate. Everybody has to create, evaluate, and activate. But what the instrument in our little game illustrates is also people have strong preferences. And where people have preference, that's where they tend to spend their time. When you spend your time there, that's when you start building skill. So it's like working a muscle. So folks who have strong green preferences are very good at planning, organizing, implementing, et cetera, because that's where they spend their time. That's what they like to do. So what are some of those skills associated? Analytical, financial, problem solving, scientific, statistical, technical. That's in that blue quadrant. And in the yellow, causing change, conceptualizing, creating ideas, trusting intuition. These are those folks who just know. On the green quadrant, very administrative, implementation focused, organizational, organized and focused on organizational issues, planning, regulatory. You're going to find your accountants here, folks where it's important to follow the law. You don't want your accountants in the yellow, right? That safekeeping self, making sure everything's under control, everything's safe, everything, we're following the rules. Takes preventative action, thinking ahead, getting stuff done, reliable, organized, punctual. And then that feeling self. Very supportive, very expressive, very emotional. A lot of hugging and touching going on. Talkative and feeling. So, I went through that pretty quickly, but that makes sense? Pretty straightforward? It's pretty intuitive? Okay, so before we go any further, I want you to take the whole brain pledge. So when I give you the signal, I want everybody to say at the same time, all 4 styles are equally valuable. Okay, you ready? 1, 2, 3. All 4 styles are equally valuable. Okay, thank you. You said that with a lot of emotion. Did you feel that, Sue?
I did.
You feel the love there? Yeah. Okay. So now, if folks have preferences and they tend to gravitate in those areas and they tend to build skill, then they also tend to go to careers where they could use those skills. So where would you find these different styles in organizations? So the investigators you're going to find in the R&D department, scientists, researching, engineering, creators. Now, by the way, this isn't absolute. You're going to find folks in multiple quadrants, but this is that kind of generalizing it. Marketers, advertisers, artists, designers. Over here, once again, finance, accounting, legal, operations planning. There's compliance issues. It's important to stay within the law. And then those activators. Now, the activators are interesting. You got human resources, salespeople, group managers, and team leaders. So, this is the one quadrant people say, no, activators, that doesn't seem right. If you think about it, that red quadrant, I see your head going up and down. What are you thinking?
I think that's spot on. It's sort of understanding the people dynamic and being able to sort of create the interpersonal connections.
Exactly. So think of that red. Think of that red as that change management. So you you've come up with a great idea and you've got the plan in place. Now you got to get people to do it. Or now you got to roll it out in the organization. Or now you got to inspire people. Or now you got to recruit people. That's where that red comes into play. So it's making those relationships, making that personal contact, or touching that emotional element. So now you can take these 4 quadrants and start using them, thinking about them in a couple different ways in terms of how can we apply these. One way these 4 styles and these 4 quadrants fit together is in a problem solving. And if you think about it, there's 4 steps to effective problem solving. How many folks are familiar with Six Sigma or any other type of continuous improvement type of process, statistical process control? You've got that first step, which is root cause analysis, getting the facts, finding out what's going on, investigating. And then once you know what's going on, it's that ideation, creating new ideas, that divergent thinking. That third step is then, once we have all these ideas, we've got to pick 1 or 2. It's that convergent thinking, evaluating, what are the criteria? And then it's going out and implementing. So as I said before, all 4 are valuable, and we use all 4 whenever we do any kind of problem solving. Now, our problem solving ability and success is related to how comfortable we are and how well we play in each one of these areas. Another place where this is effective in terms of application is in building teams, and that came up earlier. So we want to make sure that when we're putting teams together that we avoid stoplight teams. Stoplight teams are we've got red, yellow, and green, but we don't have our blue. We don't have our investigators. And it's not unusual, I'm generalizing, in organizations and in teams because we're very crunched for time, we're very busy, there's a lot of priorities, that we go from here's the problem, here's an idea, let's go do it. And we don't spend time here. Are we addressing a symptom or do we really know what the real problem is? So that's where we want to avoid those stoplight teams. So Woodrow Wilson had an interesting quote that kind of relates to building teams. He said, I not only use all the brains that I have, but all that I can borrow. So I think that's a nice way of thinking about team building. So here's an interesting profile. This is the profile of the brains in this room. So when we asked you to pass in that 1 card, we used that to identify, where those preferences are. So if that one card represents that card, that word that best describes you, we've got 14% investigators, 31% creators, 29 evaluators, and 26 activators. So this is not good or bad. This is just information. And this would be interesting information to have as you're pulling a team together and you start working on a project, just so you know where your strengths are, because this profile, there's some real strengths here. And then you also know where some of the blind spots are. All right. Now, getting you back to working on an application in your world as a volunteer. We want you to think about, in groups of 3 or 4, want you to answer a couple questions. How can you use this knowledge, the knowledge that we just gained about yourself, your own style, as well as about the model, to recruit, to motivate and retain those you recruit, and then build successful volunteer teams? So I'm going to give you a little bit more time with this, and then I have some information to share with you as well. We're in the home stretch. I feel the energy dropping here. Hang on. We got about 20 more minutes to go. Okay, you ready? Back in your groups? Go.
Having the job and having, as you were looking at people, connect with people who've done this job before, so that you're really upfront, so that you are, obviously, like we talked about, you can't advertise like everybody needs a red card. You really need a red card today. It's true, and also knowing, like I was saying, coming from Pittsburgh, we have like 10 people who maybe came last month and might want to be involved, but we're not at a place unfortunately we're really enough to agree. But if we can be honest with people and say this is unique, you have the opportunity to get people applied into those places, and because they're comfortable, keep them involved.
Yeah, so there's that not only recruitment piece, but that retention piece. They're doing work that they find valuable, that is valuable, and that they don't have to go off and learn something new. They can just apply it right away. Good. There was other hand over here. Yes.
Bouncing off that one, I think this is very interesting looking at how the brain works as parts of a whole rather than things in just bubbles. And one of the important things about building volunteer teams is that you have to make sure people feel that their work is valid and that it's appreciated, and that you get people in all 4 of these steps of the process. But you have to make sure that the whole team knows that this is going on.
Yes.
So that the work is validated and people feel that they're contributing. And in the end, it validates the end result because people know that there was a process that was done, that there were different types of inputs that were put into the end idea that was created, whether it be for an event or a program or just a structure of a meeting. That if everybody knows that all 4 of these steps were created, they don't necessarily have to know who did it, but if you talk with your volunteer and say, thank you for doing this, and follow up with them and saying, this led to this creative idea, or this input was really helpful in defining, what our task is here. I think that's the most important part, is just letting everybody know that all of these are going on.
Yeah. So this whole element of communication, letting people know what they're doing and how it fits into the bigger piece.
Yeah, and to that point, maybe something kind of going off of that really is tactical is to say we are in the evaluate, like the planning phase right now. We're going to investigate, we're going to look back through our year's programming, we're going to figure out which ones worked, what didn't, what our numbers are, really get into the data, and then move into, now that we know those findings, let's summarize them, and then next week or whatever time, I know some of the stuff moves so fast, we don't have the luxury of planning every stuff out, but then maybe this is now the creative phase, and then the evaluating phase. Maybe that's just a way that I haven't seen us really do before, so maybe that's
excellent. Excellent. I know we're bleeding into the other 2
Go ahead.
areas. This is actually back on recruiting. It's kind of we discussed in our group an interesting kind of paradox is that in our group here we have very few blues in this volunteer group, and so we all agree that we need blues, otherwise you get the stoplight effect in these volunteer bases. But we don't have a lot of blues here. Yet the University of Chicago probably has a higher percentage of blues. So as we think about recruiting, we need to think specifically about ways to make it attractive and appealing and welcoming to those blues that are out there.
That's an excellent point. I want to just build off that in 2 ways. One, this whole 50% plus 1. So the more that group grows, then maybe you'll have more folks who represent the 4 quadrants. And remember, when we looked at the profile, this is a self-selected group. You know, these are folks, you like people, right? That's I'm making the assumption that's why you're here. You're energetic, you're interesting, you're interested. So that may be why you're here. It could be one of the reasons why you're here. Okay.
Can I have a question to that? I mean, is it nurture or nature to be a volunteer? I kind of think it's inborn, and we are self-selecting. So how do we bring in people, and we're not a majority of the population, so how do you attract the ones that are not, by nature, volunteering for things, because they have skill sets that you really, you want to bring, but and lots of people sign up, and I will say, in sort of a sales funnel, 1 out of 10 hits. In the volunteer funnel, it's probably 1 out of 50 really delivers. And maybe that's a little off. Maybe it's really 1 out of 20. But how do you get sort of the people who think they want to volunteer to actually volunteer?
Yeah, let's answer. I'm going to get a few folks to answer that. Yeah, because that's really what we're here about. How do we get folks to volunteer, and how do we use what we learned today to leverage that? Yvette?
Well, one of the reasons why I volunteered is I think I was recruited over the telephone by one of your solicitors at the time who said, listen, the university needs some money in order for us to meet our goal. I said, hey, guess what? I don't have a job. I can't give you any money, but I can give you some time. And so often people may not have the dollars, but time is money. So if you are volunteering, you are in fact giving in a different kind of a way, just the same as you do at church when you give your tithes. So I said, hey, I'll come out and help you guys out. I'll volunteer. And believe it or not, then what I had been doing is looking for some of the people who also graduated with me, or people I knew who were SSA individuals who also would give some time. And like you said, it wasn't, hey, we need to be there every day. Can you give me a couple of hours? Can you help out at the school? Can you do whatever? And the idea is to let people have fun while they're volunteering. And that is the key. Because every day, if you go into a job and you go, oh God, I hate to be here, it's a job. But if you go to your job and you're going to play games like we just played, you want to go the next day, hey, what's the game? Okay, and that's the same kind of thing that I'm saying. The reason why I'm here is because there was a reason for this. I can't give you the money, but I can certainly give you the time. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
I want to completely agree with you on the fun part, because we are giving our free time. We're here on a Saturday. What do we all have 300 other things we could be doing, or even last night. And we're giving our free time, and the fun element can never be overlooked. And I look back to the best volunteer experience, and I've had a lot, but the best one was when I was at Booth, and it was a summer that I was staying to take summer courses because I needed to catch up. And I was on Hyde Park, and I was with another student and a couple of other students, and we decided to volunteer for something that the GSB, the Booth, needed to have a group to put together the incoming new student activity week. And so we said, oh, what the heck, we need some resume fillers, let's put it on there, we need it. And I had the best time because the one person in particular made it really, really fun. He was a great, big, huge personality. He just liked to laugh about everything. And we just had a really good time. We accomplished everything. He is now the CEO of Liz Claiborne. His name is Bill McComb. And so he's been having fun all the way up. Because I went and I saw him speak, and he was appearing at Booth to speak, and he just had fun speaking. He's laughing, he has the audience laughing, And so I think that fun element is really critical because we are giving our time, and it's really important to never forget that people are giving their free time and not to be super intense about it. And sometimes that happens in volunteer organizations, and that wrecks it.
So let me do this because we're speaking of time. We've got about 1 minute left. I want to go ahead. I have a few more slides I want to go through to really kind of dig in on some of this. What are some other things? And actually, it maps right onto what you've been talking about. If you have to leave at right at 11, that's okay. I won't take it personally. But I do want to get through this, and then we can continue the conversation. I'm going to dim the lights here. So some things to understand, really, about recruiting and motivating is understand people's preferences for 3 things. One is work, and you talked about this. What do they like to do? What's fun? What is it that turns them on? Work, assignments, activities. Communication, that came up as well. How do people like to communicate, and how do they prefer folks communicate with them? Are we talking to them in the right way, giving them the right information in the right mode? And then learning. Learning is fun. People have the opportunity to learn or the opportunity to do something different. That also may be why they join. So here's a couple of things, and I'm going to go through this quicker than I had expected. But if you look at these 3 quadrants, here are some of the ideal job activities. And we talked about it earlier, and these aren't surprising. Analyzing, diagnosing, problem solving if you're an investigator. If you have somebody who's in the yellow quadrant, they want to create and do new things. The planners, and then folks who want to coordinate and facilitate and implement. So those are some of the ideal job activities that you can keep in mind as you're recruiting folks. This is the kind of work we need. This is the kind of, what do you like to do, and match people up. Some of the attributes, some folks prefer to work by themselves. Hey, here's an assignment. I'd be happy to do it. Can I just go off and work and send you an email with an attachment? Sure. Putting things together, being challenged is on the blue. The yellow, taking risks, having variety. Folks want to try new things. Initiating change, there's that fun part, playing around. Evaluators, attending to detail. Yes, I'll be the person to make sure that everything gets done on time, that we stay on budget. And then the relationship building on the activator side. So those are some of the things to keep in mind to match individuals with things that they're interested in, and they have a preference for, and then they have a skill as well. Communication, think about this as, this is on the receiving end. So if I have a preference in that investigator quadrant, when you communicate with me, I want to hear the facts. I want you give me the facts. I want to know that you've done your work, that you've done your analysis, that this makes sense, that there's some quantity put toward. Is it logical? Is it to the point? On the other side of the coin, if you look at folks who have a preference in the yellow, give me the big picture. I don't need the details, but what's the big picture? Like you were talking earlier about, show me the whole picture. Is there some visual that you can share with me? Can you paint me a picture? Does it use metaphors, et cetera? Once again, in the evaluator, details, give it to me in order. Is it neat? And is it formatted in the way that I like to see it? And then on the activator side, how does it relate to what I have experienced in the past? Have you given me some examples, like those job descriptions? Great idea. And is this user-friendly? Now, what we don't want to do, I think the word back there was pigeonhole. We don't want, the job isn't for you to sit there and go, okay, I'm writing an email to Jill. I think she's in the blue quadrant, so let me make sure I do this. That's too much work. And it's too hard, because you don't know maybe what Jill's preference is. So think about this as just kind of walking through all 4 quadrants. If you're putting together an email that's going out, if you're putting together some correspondence, or if you're going to pick up the phone and call somebody and ask them to volunteer, touch a piece of each one of these quadrants. And something's going to resonate, and when that resonates, then you can build on that. I know we went through this pretty quickly. I apologize for that, but this is kind of a model that you can keep in mind. And then learning styles. Not a surprise. On the investigator side, looking at building cases and using theory. On the creative side, self-discovery, using intuition, getting a chance to learn by doing. evaluator really likes to learn something new, skill attainment, and then on the activator, sharing the ideas, and that experiential opportunity. So, walk through this really fast. Here are some things, though, that we want to keep in mind. Remember your pledge earlier? All 4 quadrants are created equal. And what I don't want you to walk out of here with is to say, okay, now I have to try to guess what somebody's preference is. Don't do that. But what you can do is keep this in mind as you're communicating, as you're offering opportunities, as you're giving people the opportunity to learn, and then also try to integrate those. Now, for more information, because you might be thinking, well, how might I learn? I got a team of folks. How might I learn what our profile is? There's an organization called Applied Creativity. They're the ones that make these cards. They have all kinds of information about Ned Herman's work, the brain dominance instrument. So if you wanted to actually take your team through an exercise, you can use these cards and do what we did, or you can have them fill out this brain dominance instrument. And then they also have much more information about the whole brain model and the data. If somebody wants to know the statistical significance of the internal validity of the model, they can help you with all that, right? So now, I talked fast. Apologize for that. Here come the lights. What questions do you have? What else? Did you sign the? All right. Sign-in sheets here.
That's all my questions. I think it's bad.
Good, thank you. I hope that you walked out of here with something you can use. I do need the cards back. Yeah, sorry about that. I know you've grown attached to them. It's like your brain itself. I'll stick around if you have any questions. Thank you for allowing me to be with you today. Appreciate that.